come on in. You can take these two. Please not open them. Come on in. Welcome, Casey. Thank you for being here. Todd, I'm so glad you're here. Here, take these. Please do not open them. Uh-oh. Like I said, don't open those. Let's get our bell work. You too. Because we're missing some students today. Let's get started on that bell work. 30 seconds to do that because I know you guys are on top of it.
I can't live so it's not in 30 seconds.
No, we're also not technically doing bell work today. So, let's finish that up. Thank you. You did a great job on that bell work, Casey. Again, we're not opening up those envelopes yet. They're secret for later. So, welcome you guys. Welcome again to Natural Resource Management. And we're still in our Wildlife Ecology and Management unit. And today we're going to dive into a really cool word called biodiversity. But before we do that, we want to now open those papers that I gave you.
Which one should I open?
You can open both, Todd. Like I said, we don't have some students today, so they would all be opening them at the same time. So these different pieces of paper come together to form a situation, and we're going to read them in order of their numbers, and then I'll place them, well, we will not place them on the board, but we'll read them out loud, and then we'll go over them all together. So who has number one?
I'm number one.
Annette, could you stand up and read that for me?
Pennsylvania is home to an estimated 25,000 species of plants.
Thank you. Do you have number two as well?
800 of these species are rare, threatened, or endangered, and at least 150 of these species have been lost from PA in recent history.
Who has number three? Todd, can you stand up and read that for me?
Of that 25,000, mammals and birds make up only about 470 species. Within that 470 species of birds and mammals, 20 are endangered, 7 are threatened, and 1 is, I don't know how to say that word.
Extirpated.
Extirpated.
What is extirpated?
We will cover that very soon, and thank you for asking the question.
Is it like constipated?
No, it is not, Todd. Can you
Can I
please
hear a
finish
story?
our statement? Let's listen to Casey finish her statement first.
Pennsylvania has one of the highest land development rates in the U.S., even if our population growth is not nearly as dramatic. This development occurs outside urban centers, creeping into farm and forest land.
Can I please have this? Awesome,
I'm not
thank
done
you.
though. This is number 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 5. Thank you, Todd. Can you stand up and read that?
In 1982, developed land covered about 10% of PA, but in 2003 it covered over 15% of the land, and an increase in more than 50% in 20 years.
Thank you so much. So, I bet there's a lot of things in there that are making you curious about, thank you, Anna, making you curious about what we're going to be covering in the next 4 days. But like I said, biodiversity is going to be our main area of focus, and mainly within wildlife. So I'm going to read that statement for you one more time, and this time we're going to think about it as a situation that we can improve by understanding it better and by discovering solutions to some of these issues. All right, Pennsylvania is home to an estimated 25,000 species of plants and animals. 800 of these species are rare, threatened, or endangered, and at least 150 of them have been lost from Pennsylvania in recent history. You guys may be taking notes in your notebooks while I'm reading this.
Can you start over? Because I would
Yeah.
be notes from okay.
It's up to you. You don't have to.
But I think I should.
Okay, let me start over for you, Annette. Pennsylvania is home to an estimated 25,000 species of plants and animals. 800 of these species are rare, threatened, or endangered, and at least 150 of these species have been lost from Pennsylvania in recent history. Of the 25,000 species generally, there are only 470 species of mammals and birds. Remember, we were working on mammal and bird identification last week. Within the 470 species of birds and mammals, 20 are endangered, 7 are threatened, and 1 is extirpated.
Can you tell us what extirpated means?
We'll cover that very soon. Now you can write that word down to ask about later.
It's like constipated.
How do you
No.
spell it? Were you constipated?
It's not like constipated. We're not going to talk about that today,
How
Todd.
do
Thank you very
spell
much.
extirpated?
Extirpated. In 1982, developed land covered about 10% of Pennsylvania, but in 2003, it covered over 15% of the state, an increase of more than 50% of developed land in 20 years. Now, and that goes with Pennsylvania is one of the highest land development rates in the country, even though our population growth hasn't been that dramatic. The development occurs outside of urban centers, creeping into farm and forest land. Does anyone know what the majority of our state's land is comprised of? We talked about this earlier on in our silviculture unit. What is the majority of Pennsylvania covered in?
Vegetation.
Forests, very good, very good. So now that we have that situation lined up, what are some of the things, what are some of the questions that you're thinking about in your head? What do you think you know about the things that we covered? And what do we want to learn? Now, as we're kind of processing that, I want you all to get that piece of paper that we had out, that clean piece of paper for later on. And separate from your lab notebook, you're going to be writing a letter to yourself to read at the end of our mini unit. And in that letter, I want you to identify what I know based on the things that we just read in the situation, what I think I know, and what I don't know yet. And there's going to be 3 to 5 things that I want you to key out as what I don't know yet in this letter to yourself. We're going to take 5 minutes to write this letter to ourselves, again with those 3 points. Todd, do you remember what those 3 points are in the letter?
No.
What I know.
Mr. I'll tell him.
Okay, thank you, Annette.
Point 1 is what I know. Point 2 is what I think I know. Point 3 is what I don't know yet.
And there's going to be 3 to 5 things in that one I don't know yet. All right, let's take 5 minutes to do that.
Wouldn't that be the same thing as what I don't know and what I don't know yet? Wouldn't that be the same thing?
Maybe it's like what you want to learn.
No, it says what I think I know is the second one. What I know, what I think I know, and what I don't know yet.
So what I think I know, I think I would know.
Yeah.
How about you reflect a little more? Those are kind of be put together in general in a statement in your letter of how you think you understand the situation. Maybe you're not sure about something, but you think you kind of know that this is something or that is something. So we're going to take 5 minutes to do that. All right, so now that you have those things in mind, I'm going to collect your letters. And that was 5 minutes of that. I don't know why you're looking at me that way. I'm going to collect your letters, and I'm going to give them to you at the end of the 4-day unit that we have here coming up. And like I said, we're going to spend the next 4 days covering this. But before we do that, we want to identify what we need to know. Some of those 3 to 5 statements of what I don't know yet that we want to cover in this unit to better understand the situation that we read earlier. So let's ask some questions as to what we want to gain from this time so we better understand that situation that we read about. What are some questions we ask? Annette asked a good one. So what is extirpated? So we want to know more about.
Yep.
We want to know more about vocabulary, about biodiversity of vocabulary. What are our vocabulary in biodiversity? Do we know what biodiversity is? Maybe that's a question we want to ask. Do you know exactly what it is here, Casey?
Probably don't know the exact definition now.
Well, if we look over to our main objectives for today, we're going to find out that we're going to be defining biodiversity as a start to our unit. What are some other questions we want to ask given the situation that we read about earlier? The things that we read, the situation we read on those handout cards.
How development specifically affects the drop in species.
So what does it look like? How development, land use, how does land use affect, how do land use changes affect biodiversity? What's another question we might ask, Todd? I bet you have a lot of questions and things you don't know yet on that letter you just wrote.
I don't know.
Annette, I know you like sharing some of those things.
I said, dear Annette, I know that animals are being extirpated, which I don't know yet.
So again, we're going to learn a little bit more vocabulary in biodiversity, like what does endangered mean, what does extirpated mean, what does extinct mean, what does threatened mean. we're gonna learn a little bit more about those, and then what animals maybe fall under them. So vocab, and then animals in those categories.
Mr. Cooper, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we should know how humans impact biodiversity.
Very good. So how do humans impact biodiversity?
I don't know.
We're gonna talk about it. Thank you for addressing that question. That's a big one. And then just from that, what are the major issues affecting biodiversity? Kind of we wanna know why these animals are going away and why it's important. Todd?
Global warming.
So maybe that's an answer, but so the question would be, what is our question for that?
Something affecting animals.
So what are some causes of biodiversity loss? Good. And so why are we losing it? And what are the sources of these threats? We would call those threats. And we talked about humans already. Thank you, Annette. What other questions do we think we want to ask? Maybe about thinking about how the situation can be improved. What are we going to ask about that?
What practices it would take to change the situation?
Awesome. So what can we do to prevent future biodiversity loss or change the situation? What can we do to make it better? Or prevent future problems? And along with that, maybe kind of figure out what's already going on. What are people already doing? What is already going on to prevent biodiversity loss? What is already going on to prevent biodiversity loss? What is already happening? Okay, so these are the major questions that we're going to be addressing in the next couple days. And it seems like a lot, but you guys are going to get a lot of chances to explore on your own. And we're going to start doing that by defining biodiversity. When I say Google search, I want you to take out your personal electronic device and Google search the word biodiversity. If you do not have a personal electronic device that has Google, you may use my iPad. I also have a really cool information sheet that is right from the web, and it has Annette. We're gonna turn that off. It also has an answer in there as well, so you're gonna be able to identify that. We're gonna have 2 minutes to do that when I say that word, and then we're
I
gonna
don't remember what I'm Googling.
biodiversity. We're gonna find a good definition for that word, and then we're gonna capture some of the key components of that and share it. Ready? Google search. All right, with 30 seconds, let's close up our thoughts and think of some closing statements or concepts to add. And if we look at this word, as you're thinking of that, remember it has two parts, bio and diversity. So let's think of that as we come up with a main definition for this. All right, let me have that iPad back here. You have your answers, Annette?
Yeah, biodiversity is the degree of variation in life.
Okay, so variation in life, very good. Todd, what did you come up with for your definition of biodiversity?
That's what Wikipedia says, is the degree of variation of life.
Okay, so Wikipedia, that's the answer from Wikipedia. Yes, Todd?
This can refer to genetic variation, species variation, or ecosystem variation.
So there's different types of variation in biodiversity. What was the third one?
Ecosystem.
Ecosystems. And we learned about ecosystems and the variation that they had in our last mini unit. What did you find out, Casey?
That, like you said, the two parts of the word, so it's biological differences, basically. So it's, like they said, the variety of species, their genetic makeup, and their community. Biodiversity, I guess, usually deals with one specific area when you're talking about it?
It depends. Biodiversity can be looked at in a very small area. It can be looked at in a region like Pennsylvania. We can look at biodiversity in the country or the Americas, and we can also look at biodiversity on a global scale. So biodiversity kind of reflects what we remember about ecosystems, that they can occur at different levels geographically and size-wise. So biodiversity can be defined by different geographic sizes. We're going to be talking a lot about biodiversity specifically in Pennsylvania over those next 4 days. So as Casey said, biodiversity is a variety of species. We have a variety of species, genetic makeup, and they're in the natural communities in which they exist. And it includes all native plants and animals. In Pennsylvania, and the processes that sustain life on Earth. So while biodiversity kind of has a few different areas and components, we're going to kind of narrow it down to maybe understand the different aspects in terms of issues, land use, impacts, threats, and how we can improve it.